Hey everybody, I am Heather Kusiba and this is Tara McCauley with Windermere Real Estate. We are here with Denise and Glenda with Sky River Mead and gonna have a little interview about you guys, your business, and kind of just get to know you guys and what you make and the deliciousness and fun of your organization.
So tell us, Denise and Glenda, about your business here, Sky River Mead. Tell us about your positions, what you do, and how everything works.
Well, Sky River Mead, we focus on making honey wines. I love grape wines, but there are lots of people that make really good ones. So we focus on our honey, and we've been doing it for about 25 years. Back when we started, people didn't know what it was. Now people are more along the lines of, I've heard of it, but I've never tried it. So really our goal, our mission is to recreate a beautiful beverage that was kind of lost to time and get it back in front of people. And to that end, I am the winemaker and I get to play with wine all day.
Wonderful.
It's not a bad job.
That's a great job.
Yes.
And I'll let Glenda speak for herself.
I'm Glenda Downs, and I do the sales and marketing side of things. And so, to dovetail on what she said, most of my job is educating people on what mead is. Mm-hmm. So,
fantastic! You're also quite the creative spirit.
Yeah.
You've got lots of wonderful artwork in here.
Mm-hmm.
I do. Thank you. I do all of our wine labels. So.
That's awesome.
They're beautiful.
Thank you.
Very artistic. Very lovely.
Yeah, she does our wine labels. She reclaims the barrels that we use and she makes furniture. She makes fountains. She makes candle holders. She's amazing.
So tell us a little bit more about how Sky River Mead came to fruition. What's its story, its background?
I actually studied economics in school, which I love, the dismal science. But I took a lot of Old English lit classes for fun. And that's where you run across references to mead and Chaucer and Beowulf and things like that. Fast forward a few years, got married into a honey family. And that the idea of mead was floating in my head. And my father-in-law at the time, he encouraged me to try exploring it and seeing what I could do. So we started playing and actually worked with Bob Keim at Cornell University to help take some rough edges off traditional mead recipes and make them a better fit for today's table. So we've spent the last 20 years now educating people about what mead is, where it comes from, the expansiveness of its history, not just the Vikings and the Celts, but also all the way down into Africa, as far east at least as India, and all the varieties that entails, because back in the day, they couldn't just get online and order whatever ingredient they wanted. It was very localized. Mm-hmm. And consequently, the mead they made in Ethiopia, very different than the mead they made in Ireland or Germany. Mm-hmm. Everything was very localized and very unique. So we're trying to bring some of that back.
Yeah.
But Glenda, what about you? What brought you to Sky River Mead?
I always tell people I did it the easy way and I just followed my sister. But so in my past, I've been a restaurant owner, flower shop owner. Immediately before joining Denise, I worked at a tourism venue in Seattle that is no longer there. But it kind of died with the 2007 recession.
Sure.
But that's right about when I joined Denise. And
how did you, does your creativity and artwork have a background of its own, or is this just a...
I started right out of high school going to Cornish in Seattle, and only did that for about a year before I ended up opening a business. And it's just been sort of a underlying constant through my life. So
entrepreneurial and artistic.
Yep. It's a good mix.
Wonderful. What is mead? I'm a little familiar. I've been a fan for a long time, but like you said, it's a little bit unknown.
Yeah, so mead is, in the simplest of terms, mead is honey, water, and yeast. And the thinking is that this is how humans discovered alcohol. Sadly, we learned how to make alcohol before we learned how to write. So there's not a lot of hard record of how it was discovered, but it's easy to imagine that a beehive fell out of a tree in a storm, got filled with water, it fermented because there's naturally occurring yeast in honey to cause a fermentation. And I imagine that they drank it because you couldn't waste back in the day, and had a really interesting night. And the guys at the cave next door were like, hey, what'd you guys do? Like, let's try that again. Sadly for mead, it largely went out of production, in part because honey is so expensive and always has been. And also because I think our ancestors figured out that grapevines don't sting you, and they stay where you plant them. And so in climates where grapes could flourish, it supplanted mead pretty early on, versus grapes don't do well in Oslo, so it survived longer in the north. And that's where we get our association with the Vikings and the Celts and all that.
Oh, interesting. That makes sense.
One of the things that I love about mead is that it has this really rich history that nobody knows about. There's the idea that it's tied to the honeymoon, where you're supposed to have a moon's worth of honey wine to ensure a firstborn male child, which back then was Social Security.
Right.
So, it's important. But it also has stories and mythology and ties into the Greeks, into the Rig Veda in India, into the Norse legends, into the Anglo-Saxons, into the Ethiopians. There are all these stories. Honeybees have long been associated with virility, or they were the messengers to the gods. It's how you got your prayers to Aphrodite, was you drove the bees up. So it's just fun seeing all the ways that it ties into pretty much any culture you can come up with. That there's a tie to bees and honey, and wax and pollen and mead, all these just rich stories that you can tell with it.
It's very cool. So are you, again, because I know a lot of people aren't as familiar with mead, can you tell us a little bit about its creation process? Like how, especially modern day, like you touched on a little bit, like back in the day, how it was likely discovered, but what is more of like a modern day process, how you go about making it?
Yeah, at a fundamental level, it's still the same. It's still honey, water, and yeast. We have the advantage of understanding sanitation a little better than they did back in the day. But at the base level, grapes in their natural state are about 85% water and about 15% solids or sugars, which just happens to be the happy spot for yeast to ferment. What the bees do to make honey shelf stable is they take all the moisture out of it, or not all of it, but most of it. If you ever go near a beehive and you hear that hum, that's not the battle cry. It's actually the bees inside all fanning their wings to cool the hive off and to get the moisture out of the honey.
Wow.
Interesting.
And then they cap it. Because of that, we have to bring the moisture level back up to a happy level. If you try to just put yeast in honey, all you'll do is get ugly honey. It won't do anything. But if the moisture level is brought back up, then it ferments quite naturally, just like grape juice would.
Yeah.
Very cool. What's the typical like length of time for it? Is it similar to wine? Or like what is kind of the timing for creating it?
Today, our fermentations are longer than grape wines. The active fermentation for a grape wine is around 10 days. Ours can be 2 to 4 weeks.
Okay.
The rest of the time that you talk about how long it takes to make a wine, that's the settling, the racking, the barrel aging, all of those things take a long time. And I think that fact alone is, I think, why it died out in this country. Because back when the early settlers came here, it was actually part of like a gentleman farmer's handbook, was you had to know how to make mead.
Wow.
It was one of the many things you had to know. But I think during Prohibition, a lot of things died out that weren't surefire.
Right.
Yeah, if you're
quick.
making, yeah, you want quick, you want bathtub gin, you want guaranteed. You weren't going to make something that you had to wait 5 years to see if it turned out.
Sure. So what is it that makes Sky River stand out both within the Mead community and within the Woodinville community?
When we first started, there was maybe 5 meaderies that I could find in the country. And granted, that was in 1997, so the internet was not quite what it is today. But we started out wanting to just go with fundamentals, really, take things back to the basics, really, truly just honey, water, and yeast. And since then, we've added a lot of varietals, but we still try and keep it real basic. We try to hold to the adage that you shouldn't eat anything that your grandmother wouldn't recognize the name of. Mm-hmm. So when we make a cherry mead, we use cherries. When we, we use Madagascar vanilla beans. We use, we grind up fresh ginger for our ginger mead. And we try and keep it as simple as we can. So we tend to stay away from the more cloying meads, and we try and make them more food friendly for the table we have today. And the nice thing about mead is that we can get up in the morning and we can do that. I think a nice rose infused Chardonnay would be lovely, but wine is held so sacrosanct that they're not allowed to play with it.
Right.
Beer makers are now playing with their beer a little bit more. But with honey, because people don't have expectations coming to it, we can get up in the morning and say, hey, what about lavender? Mm-hmm. How about chamomile? How about some, hyssop? We can get creative, we can play, but we can still keep it very real ingredients. Mm-hmm. I would. That's where I think we stand out, and I'll let Glenda talk about our location and the other things that make us beautiful.
Your location's fantastic. It really is. It's one of my favorite go-tos.
So yeah, we're located on the top of the hill here, so you have a little bit of a vista. In the summertime, we have outdoor games and lots of lawn chairs and places to hang out and for dogs to run. Wintertime, we've got a fire inside, lots of board games. So kind of the all around. Try to address every season that way. Yeah. We have rotating art in the tasting room all the time. So.
And props go to Glenda for the outside especially. She has dug out the blackberries. She's replaced them with a lot of natives. We get birds and coyotes. We had a bear that lived next door for a couple years.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's truly a special destination place. You've got it's almost like a home. It's almost like coming to a family member's home, coming in here, walking around. It's set up so comfortably and beautifully. And there's so much more here than mead, stop and give and buy new jewelry and art while you're here. And
it's funny that you say that because when we opened up here, we didn't have a lot to work with. But our guiding philosophy, at least my guiding philosophy in setting things up, is you don't very often get to make your own cubicle.
Right.
And this was our chance to make a cubicle, basically. This is our work area.
You've done a lot.
And so we figured if we felt comfortable here, then hopefully other people would feel comfortable here.
Yeah.
And just a place to be.
So you guys have so many amazing flavors and variations of meads. Do you guys have favorites? And do you have maybe even a recommended food pairing that's kind of like your go-to for any of them?
Well, I cheated and I put my favorites up here.
Perfect.
Although it's kind of like kids, your favorite depends on the day.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
Have you ever seen the signs that say, drive like your kids live here?
Yep.
And my thought is always, which kid? Which kid? But I love these three because the brochet is a caramelized honey. It's an old style of mead making where you actually intentionally caramelize the honey up front, and it adds a lot of dark, deeper layers. The blackberry is it's like summer in a bottle. And then our solace is our sort of tribute to King Arthur, or how the Anglo-Saxons made their mead. It's much sweeter, but to balance the sugars, we age it out in whiskey barrels, so it gets a lot of layers of coconut and vanilla and charcoal that really balances out and makes it a really great sipper. Glenda is far better at the pairings than I am, so I will hand that off to her.
So my favorite actually also is the blackberry. I always tell people I have a love-hate relationship with blackberries since I do all the gardening too.
Right.
But my favorite pairings, however, let's see, blackberry and barbecue is a really good one. I actually make barbecue sauce out of the blackberry too. Recipes on the website.
Wonderful. Good to know.
Raspberry and salmon or red curry are both amazing.
Oh,
And
wow.
the rose on a dark chocolate cake. That for a dessert pairing. That's one of my favorites.
Those all sound amazing.
Because honey has no tannins, it works really well with the gingers, the garlics.
The heavy herbal flavors.
Yeah, the heavy herbal flavors, lime, honey and lime, great together.
Oh, wow.
But because mead will never have tannins unless they're added somehow, the blackberry will have a little bit from the blackberries, but a straight mead's not going to have any tannins. So it works really well with a lot of foods that are pretty common around here.
So tell me a little bit about what you guys like to do for fun. I know we have the cute little doggo running around in the background here and has made his input into the interview a couple of times. So tell me, just a little bit about what you guys like to do.
I am trying to figure that out right now.
Aren't we all?
You spend 20 years with kids and doing all their stuff, and then it's like, oh wait, I get to do stuff now.
Yeah.
So
They've set you free.
I know. So I love playing with wood, and got a new compound miter saw for Christmas.
Cool.
So I'm very happy. But other than that, pretty northwesty kind of stuff. Camping, hiking, being outside, just.
And you've got a dog as well, right?
I do, but he's getting a little old to jump in and out of the car. So
Sure.
he's waiting for me at home right now.
Yeah.
But yes, he is my rescue princess.
Oh, cute.
And I'll let you.
So I paint, obviously, and I like to fish. Kayak fishing, which is part of why I chose this dog, because he fits on my kayak.
Very cool.
Is he comfortable with being picked up?
Yeah,
You
he
can
likes
keep
being
talking.
picked up.
I'm just going to grab
So,
the dog.
Yeah, anything outside. It's the Northwest. That's hiking, camping, fishing.
The Great
We're cut
Northwest.
from the same cloth here.
Are you natives to the Northwest?
We are.
We're
We
natives to
actually-
Woodinville, actually.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, our parents built a house up on Cottage Lake when I was 4.
Oh, wow.
So, born in West Seattle, but spent most of our lives here. We are the story of 18 years trying to get out, and then we came back.
Got it.
But at the time, Woodinville was very different. 520 didn't go all the way through to Avondale.
Right.
The only businesses in town were Mulbeck's, Ernst, and Prairie Market.
Yeah, it's changed a lot.
I went away to school and came back, and there's a theater, and I'm like, where was this all my life?
Right.
But yeah, we are born and bred natives.
Wonderful.
First couple classes out of Woodinville High School, even.
Oh, boy. Well, we have our
So
little
introduce
friend with
us to your. I assume this is your general manager here.
Yep. This is Eiley. He's general manager and resident greeter. So, and my fishing buddy. So,
He's fantastic.
It's very sweet. I needed to introduce him to everybody because he's so cute and is so fun to play with.
he's 2. He's a Boykin Spaniel. So,
Doll.
he's a water dog.
Yeah.
But do beware, the minute you pick up his toy and play with him,
Yep.
You're
you will be
obligated.
his. Yes.
Yep.
That is a commitment.
You will be playing for hours.
And he does not tire easily.
So even when we first got here and we're setting up, he brought his little toy to us, and it was just going all over the place, getting thrown, having some fun.
He's fantastic.
Yes, he is such a sweetie, and my dog's gonna be so jealous.
wrapping up, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you guys and some about your business and your location and how you came to be. What sorts of promotions or interests could we share with anybody watching?
How about if they just mention you, we'll make sure that they're set up with a discount.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Well, appreciate that. So yeah, Heather and Tara, just mention it when you come
Yep.
in, and you guys will be taken care of.
Come have some mead and,
Yes.
and some art.
Yes, definitely. A little bit of everything.